one increasingly prevalent thing I've seen for the last, how old am I? 22 years? Is that the simple act of being on the LGBT spectrum magically is the only thing that defines you in the eyes of people on both ends of the political and ideological spectrum. Kinda like how being a brony or being into anime magically defines you in the exact same ways. I find it both hilarious and sad that that's all people seem to talk about when it comes to quote-unquote owning someone in an argument, or even just having a conversation in general. Who I or anyone else choose to sleep with, or identify as, or spend our time doing, is our own personal shit, not your firing range. If we talk about it publicly, that's fine, but if the only string to your bow is you like dick or you eat pussy better than a man, then you need to get a better string because that's an observation, not an insult. Being gay or bi or whatever you choose to call yourself today doesn't make you who you are. Your interests or your hobbies or even your ideas of how the world should work define you. What you are is a bunch of things you can't control. Race, sex, sexuality, and appearance, you're stuck with those things. And for those of you who are going to bring up trans people and cosmetic surgeries, let me remind you that while physically they do resemble the sex they desire, they are still biologically what they were born as. And nothing I or anyone else can or will say can change that. It's not being rude, it's just a fact of life. And any trans person worth their salt will tell you this. Now, if you want to talk about gender or whatever, that's fine. If you confirm with your sexuality, more power to you. But to those who attack people based on it, can I ask what your fucking deal is? And more importantly, if that's your best or really only insult, then I think you need to reshuffle your deck and pull out another trump card. God, we've got to get a better name for that thing. Hey, Sheila! Sheila! We got a better name for a trump card? An aha card? I like it! Yeah, pull another aha card because that got nerfed harder than Symmetra did last summer. To the other half of you who literally make nothing but LGBT content and are only about that shit, then I have to ask what the fuck for. I get that you find it interesting or it defines you or whatever, but what about it makes it so that it's all you bring up? It's not really that important or interesting to hear the same hot take for the 1000th time. For instance of a gay YouTuber who never talks about it aside from 2 or 3 videos, to my knowledge that is, here is the Supreme Arcanines. He's a well-known Pokemon YouTuber who came out, honestly by accident, in a vid he made a while back. He's all about the shiny hunts and just the general idea of Pokemon content. He's great, you should check him out, links below. My point of bringing him up is that he's a YouTuber who happens to be gay, not the other way around. I like people like that. It's not the whole point of their existence. It's one reason I don't like people like Hardell or Patchwork Heart. 2 people who talk almost exclusively about their non-binaryism, is that even a word, and in Patchwork's case, their autism as well. Not to say that's not important to talk about, I myself as someone who has autism has one single video talking about it, and it's about how I didn't like the character's characterization in a show because he has the same condition I do. That was kind of the point. As someone with a disorder, I'm aware of how hard it is, and it can sometimes affect me some days more than others, but the way Sean was written bothered me in every stretch of the imagination. Another thing I can't stand about gay on the internet is how people seem to think just because there's a gay ship, or even just a hint at one, and people roll with it, that it's a bad thing. I like shipping in general. I prefer to ship men because that's just more interesting to me, seeing as all the men in my life have a range of emotions and openness starting from reserved in 4 words a day to openly weeping at the thought of a doggo not being able to go home and see his mama. Because that's sad. And sad things need tears. So, placing characters with those conflicting or similar personalities is much more interesting than a stereotypical straight couple because it's just not what I would expect. The flip side is that you have people who only ship gay couples and say no to any others. I'm also guilty of this in series like Kingdom Hearts, but that's because only 3 of the 5 main female characters have a personality to work with in the first place, those being Larxie, Naminé, and Olette, and even then, the only one with a strong tie that could be considered romantically inclined is Naminé with Riku, but in my mind that doesn't work, considering the fact that Riku is after Sora so hard that I think the Coyote is looking for pointers on how to get the Roadrunner. All the male-on-male relationships in this series make sense to me because there's more established emotion with them, and in the instances of Riku and Sora and Roxas and Axel, Nomura has stated that he only added Kairi and Gion because Disney didn't want gay relationships back in 2002 and 2008. That's it, there's no other reason. If he had his way, he'd have pulled the trigger on Siku back in KH2 based on that crying scene. However, I am smart enough to realize that other couples have to exist to A, keep a story interesting, and B, produce children. I'm all about the cute gay husbands, but not everyone likes that all the time. and want some lesies or some heteros in their world. What's the point of this long tangent? Well, the main point is that shipping is a fun and good outlet for people. So if it's gay, who cares? Much like with the rest of this video, the big question is, why does it matter? It's no different than who you fuck. Let's bring this back to YouTubers for a second. Here is Tana Mojo, a relatively famous YouTuber. You might have heard of her from her TanaCon fiasco last summer, but that's not the focus of today. She had a boyfriend named Brad, and they were cute and fun and nice, till she found out he was cheating. But she was also in an open relationship with former Disney star Bella Thorne, and they're very cute together also. But my point in bringing this up is that I remember watching one of her old videos about her and Bella's relationship, and how she had to come on and talk about it because it was that pressing to her fans, and I couldn't help but think, why? Why does it matter? If she fucks a man, woman, dog, hell, have an orgy every Thursday at 4:20 while smoking a bigger blunt than Snoop Dogg. Who fucking cares? Tana makes content about her life, so making a video with Brad or Bella happens a lot, but if she was just friends with them, it wouldn't have been given a passing thought. But because she was dating both of them, that's when it gets weird? I don't get that. As an aside, I'm deliberately picking YouTubers who aren't Riley Dennis because frankly I don't want to deal with her shit, and that's just low-hanging fruit. I want a challenge in this, not the broadside of a barn. Although I do have to ask, what the fuck are these fake controller prompts? I mean, I've seen some bad fake typing, and I've even seen bad controller usage, but this is just terrible. Anyway, I don't really care if you're gay, straight, bi, pan, demi, or whatever, but if you think that shit defines you, then you clearly don't know what defines a person. I can name 100 things about myself that have nothing to do with who I like to fuck. And the reason I can do that, I'm not so wrapped in logic by people who think that who I stick my dick into is important. The idea that one's sexuality or gender is all that defines them is a really stupid idea that I've never gotten. People are people, and it's sad that people don't think like that. Hell, Ash Hardell herself made this claim way back when, while they talked about sexuality for the, 100,000th time that week? Yes, it was 4 years ago, but Ash is still on this same train of thought to this day. I'm using this as a way to explain how people who have their head up their own ass can think when they're in this community. God, I hate that word. They were talking about how they get this comment.
Gay, trans, bi, poly, demi, black, white, Dutch, meow, 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 meow. This is all so complicated and confusing, and why does it even matter? Why can't we just all be people?
And how they hate it. And apparently it's a straight white cis guy that says this 99.99% of the time. And how basically this whole line of thought that that guy, and subsequently I, are using is dismissing people because they might consider that label of whatever the fuck you want as their identity. No. Learning the label or saying what you have gone through is not what's going on here. Treating people like equals and not using labels like gay, bi, cis, trans, or what have you is not the point. My goal in this topic is to get people to talk about other things in their lives, like what games they play or what they like to cook or watch or to think about something that isn't about this topic. I'm not uncomfortable with it by any stretch of the imagination, but I am annoyed at the fact that to some people this is the end-all and be-all. I have the same disdain for that line of thinking as I do for Marvel movies at this point. It was fun and new and different 10 years ago, but taking a break once in a while is nice. There's a reason I talk about characters or even just a movie or a series I like a lot on my channel, because who they fuck isn't important. Yes, I have 2 videos dedicated to shipping 2 sets of characters into gay romances, but those are 2 out of 100, and those were only made because the pairings were so nakedly obvious that I wanted to share my thoughts and explain how to introduce them into the pre-existing works they were in, along with comic books and video games that people just can't ignore. Would I like more gay couples in Disney, Marvel, and DC, and just video games in general as the main character? Hell fucking yes I would, but I don't talk about it every goddamn second of every goddamn day because Sora being cute or seeing some happy puppers or watching my nephew is more important to me than who's sleeping with who and what those said people have between their legs. If I had to say something to anyone who is trying to make a YouTube channel or make it big anywhere, please choose a topic other than this one, because people who either attack based on it or only bring it up in a way to justify their own thoughts or basically say, woo, look at me, I'm insert buzzword here, and talk about inclusion or whatever you want to call it, then you are simply going to be stuck in an echo chamber that you don't want to get stuck in for years to come. My advice? Find a topic you're passionate about and go from there. It's the smartest thing I've ever done. As a rule of thumb, again, who you are the things that you think and enjoy or how you perceive things. What you are the sex, race, orientation, and genitals. My name is Chris, and just be happy being who you are and not what.